How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of Bash for Beginners. This is going to be a pretty short episode. We're going to be covering variables and inputs in this, but before I get started talking about it or just walking you through a few of them, as you can see, I want to touch on this, if you can see what I'm highlighting. It says Bash variables are untyped. I'm going to leave information in the description of this video so you can read up on this because it's just something you need to wrap your head around. But basically what it means is there are no like set variable types. If you come from like a C style language and you want to create an integer, you would have to do int and then like name your integer and then give it a value. Whereas, as you can see in the different variables I have listed out, integers, floats, strings, there is no type declared before the variable name. So basically everything that follows after a variable declaration are just their character strings, and depending on the context of what's inside of that variable's string of whether it be numbers, letters, both, depending on what's inside of that is how Bash will determine if it's going to permit arithmetic operations and comparisons for your variable. So basically the key factor in determining if you're going to be able to use arithmetic and different operations on your variable is if it consists of all numbers or not, because that's a pretty surefire way to tell if that variable is meant to be a number or not. If there was, say, a C in this, I would not be able to do some math operations, or they would not be correct. At least we know that for sure. But so as you can see, strings, I just have my string and then double string. The first one I encapsulated in single quotes, second one I encapsulated in double quotes. You can use either. I'm a fan of single quotes. I later on will brush more on double quotes and just other things. You can use different quotes for sort of different things, but that'll be more advanced. This is just going to be a beginner series, so maybe we'll touch on that later on. Integers again, it's just an integer. This would be a float, so I mean it's an integer. Floats and doubles, anything following a decimal point. I believe this would technically, yeah, like this would be on its way to being a double. So, a float, double, doesn't matter. It can do them both. It's just however many, or technically you can look at it as a float or a decimal, but it's just a string of different numbers, but you can represent floats and doubles using variables, I should be saying. And then lists, there's two kind of different ways to do lists. You can do them with you can do them with parentheses or square brackets if you want. I'll show you. You might be able to tell with this variable name what's gonna happen, maybe not. And then booleans. If we're gonna talk about booleans a little bit, you can use a boolean as a string and just label it true and false. That's basically the only way you can kind of jerry-rig it to fit your program. There is no true boolean in Bash, or at least version, I believe, 4 that I'm using. But what is considered true in Bash is a little confusing. So you want to make sure you read up on this because you don't want to mess yourself up. What I mean by that is true will come back as true in Bash. 0 will show up as true if you pass 0. If you're familiar with other programming languages, such as, we'll just talk about C again. If I was to create a boolean x, I could label it true, or I could put 1 for true. So 1 also means true in most programming languages, and 0 means false. But as you can see, if you were to pass 0, which is false in many other programming languages, it's going to come back true. 1 is going to come back true. A string will come back true. The only things that won't come back true are an empty string, and then this is meant to be an undeclared variable. don't pay attention to that $sign. I'm about to talk about it right now. So how you can output variables inside of your strings is just passing them. So we'll go ahead and use echo again, and if I want to print out my string, I would do my string, and then there's a couple different ways, so I'll show you a couple different ways to do this. So the first method is use a $sign like you saw earlier if you did, and then you can do your variable name. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll run this code. So as you can see, my string, this is my string. That's what should have been outputted. You can also use, if you come from maybe a web development side of this, I'll write double quotes. So if you're familiar with web development, you can also use a $sign and then these brackets. This is kind of like JavaScript-ish. And then you can pass a variable like that. So there's two different ways of doing it. This way right here, and then just using the $sign. So I'll go ahead and output that for you as well. Double quotes, as you can see, double quote output and single quote output look the same. And then if I wanted to show both strings, you can actually, or at least you should be able to. Oh, so here I forgot about that actually. So here we are with our first, just a little bit of showing you guys the difference between single and double quotes. If you didn't see what just happened, I'll actually just first finish typing this, but yeah, I forgot about that. So actually first I'll just go ahead and run this program to show you guys, but I want to point out that we are using double quotes unlike this. So inside of double quotes, we're going to be passing our variable, and you can do that inside of double quotes. So I'll do it again. As you can see, it outputs both strings. Let me just erase that, it'll make it easier. But yeah, so it'll do both. It includes the comma in between as well. But if I was to switch this to single quotes, it's not going to run. So double quotes are needed to be passing variables inside of strings. I'm sorry, I should have talked about that earlier. So yeah, that's how you want to do it. If you want to pass a variable inside of your string, you have to use double quotes and encapsulate it. If you want to just follow it after, you can, just use single quotes like that. So that's that. I don't need to output string and decimal for you guys probably. I think you guys, unless you want to see a 19 and a 10 point something pop up. But we'll go ahead and cover lists now. So just showing you guys what these look like. I'll just go ahead and output list 1. This will be the list with brackets, or I mean with quotation marks. And then our bracket list. So list with brackets. Basically, the main thing that's going to change is this will be shown in output. So as you can see, the list that I use brackets for initializing, those show up in the output, whereas with list 1 where I use quotation marks, it's not. So that's how I do my lists. I don't really know anyone that does them like this, but there probably are use cases. So I'm just going to delete that one because we'll be focusing on this one. something to mind is lists can be composed of different variable types. So just, I'll add a float in there as well. No, I'll put it, and you can see it shows up. I have an integer and then 2 strings. I could technically unquote Chicago if I wanted to, and it would work. The place where you would run into problems is if you were going to use space, like multiple words. If I was to write like Chicago, Illinois, since it's not encapsulated inside of strings or quotation marks such as Alex program, it's only going to pick up Chicago, as you can see. So, oh, and actually, the variables afterwards got messed up. So that's interesting. But yeah, so use quotes. But so that's pretty much the end of this video. I'll just go ahead and end the video with a little script that'll take a user's name and then output it. So if we haven't, I don't remember if we've covered this or not, but read is basically the opposite of echo. Echo would be you're outputting something, and read is you're taking input in. So we'll call read minus p. Minus p stands for prompt. If you want to have text like enter your name, you have to use minus p. If you don't, this won't show up, and you'll just be left with like an insert line. But so we'll do read minus prompt, enter your name, and then at the end of this is you would create a variable name. So I'll just call it name, and then now we can do echo, and then double quotes because I'm going to encapsulate the name, and I want to write stuff afterwards. So I'll do hello name have a good day, and then we can see how this would run. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, make sure you use a space after the quotation mark. Gonna run it again. Enter your name. Name is Alex. Hello, Alex. Have a good day. So just show you guys real quick. If I was to forget the prompt, the minus p, as you can see, I'm just given something to type. If I was to do it, oh well, it's picking up the prompt as well, and it doesn't like that. So you could do it that way, read and then just a variable name. This is just like insert the variable name. But if you want to add some dialogue in there, you have to use minus p for prompt. So that's the end of this video. Just covered basic variables, strings, integers, floats, doubles, lists, and what a true boolean is in bash, because it doesn't exist. And then we talked about grabbing user input and naming it, and then outputting that into strings. So that's the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll try to help you out. Yeah, have a good day.